they're off. Welcome to Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management by Dynasty Financial Partners and hosted by CEO Shirl Penney.
Welcome to Season 5 of Around the Track, coming to you live from Saratoga Springs, New York, here at the Oklahoma Track, which is the oldest sporting venue in America. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management. I'm your host, Shirl Penney, founder and CEO of Dynasty Financial Partners. And I'm incredibly excited about this episode of Around the Track because I'm joined by my good friend, Jayson Werth, who many of you will know as a World Series champion with the Phillies, but also in the horse racing world, you'll know him as one of the co-owners of Dornoch, who won both the Haskell as well as the first ever Belmont Stakes here at Saratoga. Jayson, thank you so much for sitting down and having this conversation.
Yeah, no problem. I like it has a good ring to it. The first ever Belmont at Saratoga. It was an amazing day and accomplishment.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to lie, as a fellow horse owner, I'm jealous. So good on you. And I've been doing it longer than you, and you're making me look bad. All right, look, one thing I know about you, you're not a rule follower, but nonetheless, I'll throw out this one rule, which is we're going to try to make our way around the track here together in less than 15 minutes. I'm going to ask you 8 rapid fire questions. Each one represents one of the furlongs on the mile track behind us. Let's get after it.
Okay.
All right, look, in racing and in life, how you break from the gate matters a lot. So let me give you a nice softball. Tell the audience a little more about Jayson, your family, your career, and your newfound passion and love of horse racing.
Sure. So I'm a third generation big league ball player. Got to the big leagues when I was about 23. Had some almost a career-ending injury. Cost me 3 years of my career. Finally got back playing every day with the Phillies in 07. Won a World Series in 08.
Yeah.
We got beat by the Yankees, by their dynasty team, no pun intended, in 09. And then had a breakout year in 2010, my free agent year, and ultimately signed I think the 9th biggest deal at the time with the Washington Nationals. Retired at the age of 39 and started playing golf. And golf led me to horse racing. Played with a guy that has owned horses for a while and kind of got me in. Started doing doing some one-offs, buying some horses with some other people. And the first colt I ever bought was Dornoch. So it's been an amazing journey, and I love that you're jealous.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. There's a lot of people jealous. I mean, that's a once in a lifetime kind of horse, and it's the first colt that you've owned. So congratulations, you kind of hit the lottery.
Yeah, most people say I should retire right now.
Yeah, well, I hope you don't. I think you're awesome for the sport, so please don't retire.
Not yet.
All right, so just back to baseball. I'm interested to ask you this question. I mean, you had so much success. You mentioned the World Series championship, which I can imagine in Philadelphia was an amazing place to win it. Obviously, you're an all-star. I think, if I remember right, one game you hit 3 home runs in one game. You've had a lot of success, but if you think back, what stands out as one of the biggest moments that you, Jayson, are most proud of?
Well, I played on a lot of good teams with a lot of good players.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of team accomplishments. I like to tell people I only played on one bad team in 15 years. So that's pretty cool. I never was part of a team that got no hit, which is tough to do when you play for 22 years professionally. But personally, I think the at bat in the 2012 playoffs in Washington, 13 pitch at bat, bottom of the ninth, led off the inning.
Who was pitching?
Lance Lynn.
Yep.
The Cardinals, I'm from Central Illinois, so it's kind of Cardinal country there. So there's a little bit there was a little bit more to it than just another playoff baseball game. But the walk-off homer was it was the year 2 of my long-term deal in Washington, and I battled, fouled off a bunch of pitches, 13 pitch at bat, and hit a walk-off homer. So it was one of those moments where where it kind of signified, like, solidified myself in Washington, and proved that my contract, I guess, because it was one of those things that, when I signed with Washington, they're coming off 200 lost seasons, probably the worst franchise in all sports at the time.
Wow.
People said I did it for the money. People said I did it for all the wrong reasons. But really, I went there for all the right reasons. It just didn't look like that, to the public's eye. But it was one of those things where it kind of, like, just how my career went. It was always, I was down 0-2, and I was in a terrible situation. And I battled back, got it to 3-2, fouled some balls off, and ultimately hit a walk-off. So I think that, that moment was really cool for me and my family, and kind of, like, got things going in the right direction in Washington.
All right, so let's talk a little more about what you're hinting towards there, which is overcoming adversity, right?
Sure.
So if you look at whether it's entrepreneurs, athletes, pretty much anyone who's had any level of significant success, if you really peel the onion back, they've overcome some pretty significant adversity.
Yeah.
Adversity certainly builds character, makes you tougher. Talk a little bit about some of the adversity. I know you share with me, some pretty interesting things, but what did you learn about yourself as you pushed through and dealt with the adversity?
Yeah, I mean, I had some bad injuries that almost put me out. When I finally got a chance in Philly, 2 guys had to get hurt on the last day, July 31st, on the trade deadline, and the Phillies couldn't get a deal done by midnight, so their only option was me. And the GM sat me down before that game on August 1st and told me this was my last chance in baseball.
Wow.
So, it was like backed into a corner type situation. And, I was a first-round pick. I was almost Rookie of the Year. So it felt a little unfair, but that's the name of the game. It's cutthroat. So I think with all the adversity and all the stuff that I went through to finally break through and number one, get an opportunity, but number 2, make the most of that opportunity.
Yeah.
Opportunities in life, whether it's business or sports, are few and far between. A lot of people, they're great players, great talent, but they never get their chance. And Charlie Manuel told me one time, the best piece of advice I've ever anyone's ever given me, he said, when they give you the hammer, make sure you use it.
Yeah.
And I capitalized on some things throughout my career that were kind of like, this is it. This is your one chance. And I think that's, you don't always get those opportunities. You don't always get a second chance, and you got to make the most of the opportunities when you get them.
Yeah. No, I love that. Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about change. I think there's a lot of people who will be watching this video that are thinking about either a career change, maybe launching their own wealth management business, or moving into some other form of entrepreneurship. Some people might be thinking about selling their business. Some people might be thinking about retiring. And for you, you're a couple years now on the other side, obviously retiring from baseball and now finding some other passions on the other side. Don't know how much you plan for it, but if you could, talk to yourself, 5 years, let's say, before you retired, based upon what you've learned about yourself now and kind of being on the other side, what advice, if any, would you give the slightly younger version of Jayson?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. You don't really know when it ends. So I mean, I didn't want to quit playing baseball. I got too old. It's Father Time. He's undefeated. So when when that day came, it was like, all right, and in baseball, in sports in general, most of the time there's no exit plan. There's no plan B, I guess. And so when I was done, it was kind of like, all right, well, now what? And luckily, financially I was in good shape. But I I was a high school graduate. I never went to college. I never, didn't have a degree. I put all my eggs in one basket.
Right.
So if I could go back and tell myself anything, I would probably tell myself to plan a little better. But at the same time, I've always been one of those people that kind of, they call it in baseball, let the game come to you. Don't try to go get the game. When you try to go get something, sometimes it's forced and it doesn't work. So I've kind of taken that approach in business now that I've retired, and just letting opportunities come to me, and again, like just making the most of those opportunities. When I had a chance to buy Dornick, my partner that I was there buying horses with, he was offered the same deal, and he passed.
Yeah.
So sometimes you got to take chances, you got to take shots, and again, when they give you the hammer, you got to swing it.
Well, fortunately, you were, as you mentioned, financially in a position where you could buy a piece of Dornock. And unfortunately, we hear a lot of horror stories about athletes that maybe don't take as well care of their finances, or they've surrounded themselves by people that unfortunately they can't trust. So what advice would you give to an athlete that might be looking for the right financial advisor? And then the flip side is, what advice would you give to a financial advisor that might be looking to work with more athletes?
Yeah, that's tough. From the athlete's perspective, I would say keep your circle tight. Mm-hmm. You see too many guys with too many people, too many Klingons and hang-ons, and people are just taking advantage of you. And it's tough because most guys, they don't come from a background of wealth, and so when they get it, you get people, trying to get a piece, and you want to be a good guy and take care of people. Right. But long term, it's you see it too many times. From the advisor side, it's tough. I think that you got to be tenacious, and you got to be pushy, but not over the top. You see those guys hanging around in the tunnels, and we call them tunnel rats. They're always there trying to grab onto a piece of anybody. So that's tough. I mean, you got to have a right personality. You have to have good character, and you got to know what strings to pull and when to pull them, because these guys, you don't know what's going through their heads. Sometimes they can have a conversation after going 0 for 4. Some guys, you can't talk to them for a week after they go 0 for 4. So there's a lot of feel to it, and I think as you go on and you put your time into it, you just gotta, again, you gotta take the shots when they're given to you.
Yeah, Dynasty recently passed $100 billion of assets under management. And I think this. We're about $5 billion of the $100 billion in athlete-related money. So it's been a lot of fun and interesting for us to work with a number of your peers, and I think you're spot on with the guidance there. All right, let's pivot to something I know you're super passionate about, and that is horse racing, and in particular Dornock. We're taping this video 3 days before the Travers.
Don't remind me.
For anyone who doesn't know the Travers, for me personally, loving Saratoga Springs, I probably would rather win the Travers than the Kentucky Derby. I mean, it's one of the most prestigious races, one of the oldest sporting events. Races, and I'm not trying to get you nervous here, and you're going into the race with one of the favorites. Are you sleeping at all? Like, how nervous are you? How's he doing? And the expanded question is, why are you so darn passionate about racing? I've even heard you say in an interview that winning the Belmont Stakes here was as exciting as winning the World Series.
Yeah. The things you say when you're caught up in the moment. But it's true. I mean, I think the cool part about horse racing, especially for retired athletes, is, once it's over, you don't get to experience those, the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat on we do it every day.
Right.
And so you have these emotions that you go through become your way of life, and then once it's over, you can't access that. There's nothing you can do to replicate that. And horse racing, surprisingly, was something that I was like, man, this is great. I can deal with winning, I can deal with losing. I did it all day, every day. So it's very similar. Horse racing, they say if you're successful 30% of the time, you're a Hall of Famer.
Right.
Baseball is almost identical.
Yeah, good point.
So that's, you got to know how to lose, you got to know how to take things in stride. which you learn playing sports. And then, you know, when you win, you gotta know how to celebrate it. So yeah, getting back to Dornoch and the Travers. I mean, we're in an opportunity here that you know is
Few people have.
yeah, it's once in a lifetime.
Yeah.
You know, so to win a World Series, I know how hard it is to win. You know, I've been to the playoffs 10 times in my career, and I won one World Series, and I lost to the other one. So, you know, winning's not guaranteed in anything. You can, you know, just because you get to the playoffs, you know, doesn't mean you're going to win the World Series. Just because you're in the race doesn't mean you're going to win it.
Hard to build a dynasty.
Right? Very, very hard. Only few have done that.
Yeah.
So I think horse racing has filled a void in my life that I almost didn't know I had. And it's been a surprisingly awesome sport for me and my family to experience together. And I will share that in sports, for the most part, you do it on the field, you do it with your teammates, and they're like your brothers, but they're not your family. They're not the people you go home to. And when you win, you look up at the stands and you wave to your family. Or when you lose, whatever. They're up there, you're down there. In horse racing, you do it together,
and your family's
and you're
right
all
there.
right there,
Yeah.
and you get your hands on them right
That's
away.
So good.
And
That's
it is
so good.
it is so special, and I think that's the part of horse racing that is almost better than, you know, playing a professional sport.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, our stable is Team Penny Racing, and we really named it that, you know, for the family, and that we get to do it together. And I've often said, I can relate to what you said, that, you know, my sports franchise, right, you know, is, you know, the stable, and I can understand how being back in the action, you know, why that makes, you know, a lot of sense to you. I've heard people say about you that you are a great leader, and you're not afraid to tell people, you know, tough things when they need to hear tough things, and have been a leader, you know, in the clubhouse, and you know, have helped, you know, lead a team to winning a World Series. So I want to ask you, what do you think, and it can be about yourself or other great leaders that you've been around, what makes a great leader, and what in your mind, Jayson, defines a high quality team?
Yeah, so I think on the team side, you don't necessarily have to have the best players. You don't necessarily have to have the most talent. But you do have to have a group of people that gel and have great chemistry and are all going in one direction. And I played on a lot of great teams, and that was the common denominator on all those teams. As far as the leadership goes, I've played with awesome leaders. When I got to Philadelphia, we were all kind of about the same age, and you know, we didn't really have a team captain per se, but you know, we had, you know, Jimmy Rollins was kind of the vocal leader of the team, awesome guy. Yeah. You know, Ryan Howard was, you know, he hit fourth and was the anchor of the lineup, but soft-spoken guy, doesn't say a whole lot. Kind of just is, you know, his presence alone is the way he leads. Chase Utley was, you know, probably the on-field, you know, captain, if you will, but didn't really say anything. He led by example. You know, Shane Victorino was the guy that wouldn't shut up. You know, so we had everybody, you know, led in their own way, and I think it's important to, you know, on a team that you have multiple leaders, and then they all do their one thing. They're specialized in what they do, and they do it well. You know, I've never been a person that says, you know, I'm the guy and everything I say goes. But you put people in the right spots to succeed, and you let them do the things. You don't micromanage them, and everybody works together. And I've played on some really good teams that way.
Awesome. All right, we're approaching the finish line. So the last question I've asked, you know, the 50 plus guests that I've had on Around the Track is always the same one, which is, what is your Triple Crown? And obviously by that, Jayson, what I'm asking is, what is that big, seemingly unattainable goal that still sits out there in your life, whether it's personally or professionally, that, you know, that brass ring that you want to grab that gets you up in the morning and you're excited about? For you, what would that Triple Crown look like?
Yeah, when you get to the level that I got to in your sport, and then, you know, you don't think you're ever going to retire. You never think it's going to be over, right? Yeah. And then one day the rug's kind of pulled out from under you, and you're like, all right, well, now what? You know, we've done that. My kids are, you know, at college age. So we're kind of getting into that next chapter of life, which is, the empty nest portion of the program, which, presents, all kinds of new challenges and just opportunities. So I don't know just yet what that looks like. We're kind of tipping our toes into some different business ventures and trying to find the right place, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's not easy. I mean, you gotta love what you do, and right now this horse racing thing has been just kind of out of nowhere. We didn't we didn't really plan on this, and going into the Kentucky Derby, I was like, oh my God, if this horse wins the Kentucky Derby, this is a different life.
Yeah.
And then, he runs 10th and you're like, all right, well, that was a fun experiment. Like that's over. Let's move on. And then all of a sudden he comes out of nowhere, 17-1, and wins the Belmont. Goes to the Haskell, wins the Haskell. Now we're at the Travers. He's 5-2 more in line favorite in the Travers. Like, that has presented a whole new set of circumstances.
And he runs well there. He's going to go to the Breeders' Cup, I assume, right?
Well, when the Haskell was winning, you're in the Breeders' Cup. So, it doesn't end here. But the Stallion deal does only permit him to have 2 more races, like we were talking. So, there is a little window here to capture something. And I think the sport of horse racing is prime to go through its, like I mentioned the other day, its own industrial revolution. It hasn't really ever grown. So looking at opportunities within the sport, I think that this is an amazing sport that people have no idea. I mean, this is a huge sport. It's one of the biggest sports in the world. Right. And I feel like they haven't even scratched the surface of how cool it is and really told the story, in the right way for a long time. I know a lot of people are trying to grab a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I see opportunity within the sport. I actually really I'm passionate about the sport. I love it. I think it's an amazing sport to be around. What you have here is otherworldly. Just like, I mean, it's.
Can you see yourself in Saratoga more in the future?
I think so. I mean, I don't know. It's like all this is happening so fast. So you're trying to. You're trying to, you don't want to rush into anything, but at the same time, it's like we're experiencing this thing. I call it death by fire hose. It's like, all the information I'm getting. I knew nothing about the sport 3 years ago. So now all of a sudden it's like,
you're an insider now.
Yeah, now I'm looking for a career in horse racing. So we'll see how it goes, but expect big things.
That's awesome. Jayson, thank you so much for sitting down and having this conversation.
Awesome.
I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you to all of you for tuning in for another episode of Around the Track.